college and I always knew that I wanted to do something in communication, and I knew how important the role of client servicing was in all this. But as I went along, I realized that, there's a lot more, and possibly what I read in textbooks. I'm a psychology graduate. I thought I knew enough about people. I knew enough about navigating relationships, but trust me, it was quite different. I would be unfair to say that what I learned as a psychology student or as a business management student did not help me. But there are a lot of other things also that tend to play a very, very important role in just trying to decode what client servicing is and what kind of, I believe some of you may aspire to be wanting to pursue a career in client servicing. So I thought I'm going to keep the session today more conversational, quite basic, and more about life skills. Because there isn't anything technical that I can bring to the table and say, here are the 5 things, possibly, this is what is going to help you to really understand what client servicing is and, where does it actually sit in the entire gamut of communication. You're at the cusp of really deciding what next for you. Some of you may choose marketing, some of you may choose finance, some of you may choose any other streams. I want you to maybe by the end of the session realize that client servicing is going to come in handy for anyone and everyone. I know I'm speaking to the marketing committee and maybe marketing club. Maybe not too many of you are thinking about finance, but go to a bank and you'll find, I'm talking about IIM graduates who actually start as relationship managers after having majored in finance. It opens our eyes to this entire and very, very interesting world of client servicing. But, very importantly, first of all, I would say it's a clear path, but in no time does it turn into a maze because of the challenges that it brings along with it. And it is up to us. And of course, I'm not saying that the environment and the situation that you're in will not play an important role, but I think staying true to the purpose, staying true to the path that you've defined is going to be extremely important for you to navigate through the maze and make it back into a path, because you will be encountered by everyday situations where either you'll be questioning yourself or questioning, the entire situation, or why is it happening in the first place. It's important, and I don't know, unfortunately, this format is such that, we cannot make it very interactive, but I would have been very keen to hear from you on what all you think actually constitutes to making client servicing what it is. And very often when I meet youngsters like you and a lot of other aspiring youngsters who want to make a career in PR, and the first thing that they come and say, hey, I like talking to people, so I think I'm very well cut out for the job. And I always tell them, well, good enough. You like talking to people, so you've crossed the basic hurdle of the phobia of seeing too many people in a room. Unfortunately, we've all forgotten what it feels like, but at some point we're going to go back to our offices. And even if we don't go back, with 45 people on the call today, I have reasons enough to feel intimidated, right? Till about 15 minutes back, I was the client of Manya who was speaking to me about, we have a session, can you come and host a masterclass? And now when I'm talking, you all are my clients. And that's exactly what I meant by the path and the maze, because it changes course by the minute. A recipient to, the service provider, it changes in no time. And it's really the agility. It's also the understanding of the role that I'm here to play, right? So when Manya did her bit of explaining it, and she explained to me what my clients are going to be, some 46 of you, and I tried to kind of decode into what each one of you would be seeking, and I think I'm sitting with some kind of solutions. By the end of the session, some of you will leave satisfied, some of you will be supremely dissatisfied and would be like, oh my God, I wasted 60 minutes of my life. What do I do with it? Do I go back disappointed and say, I didn't make the 100% of the group happy? Or maybe, I come back to you. I mean, if, I'm just imagining a situation, or I come back to you and say, let's imagine we had to do a phase 2 to this and say, what do you think was missing? How can I make it better? And that's really what client servicing is all about. It's not about facilitating something and ending the conversation there, because I think that's where you fall flat. It's never a single transaction. Yes, you are an enabler of a service to somebody. You, in most cases, represent an organization, represent a company, or represent your own startup that you may end up, with the grace of God and your business acumen, you may get the best of investors. But excuse me, even your investor in a way is going to be a client, because you will be responding to certain queries or needs that he or she may put in front of you, that how is your business proposition viable? How are you going to meet, even out, when are you going to just break even, and all of those things. So it's a very, very interesting field, and I don't think I can do justice in 60 minutes, but I'm going to try very hard to make it as clear and comprehensive for all of you. And I wanted to draw in an analogy from painting, because and I'm not saying that it's one skill or one line of work against the other, but I think in client servicing, you are actually like a painter, sitting with multiple colors in front of you, and with multiple paint brushes, trying to think that, because I have multiple stakeholders to cater to. If I imagine my life, I have spent all my life in the agency world. So my clients are my clients, right? But what I forget in the deal is that because I also handle media relations for my clients, the media is also my client today. The influencers are my clients. Anybody that I have a business transaction with outside of my organization is the client. But I take a step back and say, but there are people internally who are also my clients, right? My boss is also my client, because he or she is going to seek some answers from me. My subordinates, my peers, they all, in a way, we all are working towards the same end, but we all are playing a particular role. So, when I got the topic, it got me thinking, because it was supposed to be art. So I said, is it a skill? I wasn't sure. I said, is it an art? So I said, okay, let's draw the analogy of painting. But is there some science attached to what you actually do in client servicing? Because that's also very, very important for us to know. Or is it just everything put together? And possibly it's a beautiful palette of services that you go out and offer. I think, the first thing I'm going to attempt doing for you is to actually go down to the basics and decode it for you. As I understand it, I'm not speaking to you as somebody who's written 50 books on it, but I speak from my experience. I speak from having been through some very good and some very bad situations, which tend to take a toll on your thinking, on your agility, and just everything. Somewhere you feel that those are, in a way, career-defining moments. So, the first thing is that, and again, this is not, don't take it literally that, hey, but we read it in the textbook that soft skills are defined by ABC and hard skills are defined by ABC. I am trying to decode it only from a client servicing perspective. And if I had to break it down for you, I'd like to break it into two parts. One is the soft skills, and of course, the other are hard skills. And you would wonder that, why am I talking to you about the soft skills first? Yes, this is where the emotive connect and being able to absorb a lot more than what is coming to you plays a very, very important role, because you cannot be robotic in client servicing. As much as it hurts, and I'm not equating client servicing to the very difficult job that some of the call center executives have to play. We are often not in the best of moods when we call them up, whether it's our Zomato order, which is getting delayed, whether it's, just an overall bad experience, or just anything as feedback, because I don't think we've kind of reached that point as individuals where we want to give good feedback. We often give very, very bad feedback. And I think that is a very, very important point to note. But I think we'll park that for a minute, because that's a phenomena you'll find, should you decide to pursue a career in, say, CRM or customer relationship management and those kind of that kind of line of work, maybe that's something that you must pay attention to. But I think specifically in the role that client servicing plays in the world of communication, whether you choose to be in an advertising agency, whether you choose to be with a brand and do certain bit of brand management, or like me, you like to be in a PR agency handling communication across various mediums. I think the first thing to remember is your listening skills will play a very, very vital role in what you produce as output for your clients and in terms of your client servicing, because you cannot afford to be a bad listener. There is no choice. There is no negotiation there. Very often, and I think with experience, you'll realize that it's not a friend conversation. Hey, how are you? I have a problem. Let's work together and solve it. These are tough situations. This means a business loss to somebody. This is something that might be affecting the bottom lines of a company. So you've got to understand the big stakes that you're in, and it's a very, very big game. And even if you are there to solve the smallest of problems, if you don't listen and if you don't absorb, I think you lose the first battle there. So the first rule of client servicing that you must remember is the ability to listen well. Sometimes the natural tendency would be to disagree, but hold on, let the other person finish and then make a point, because you never know what's going to get lost in the deal of just trying to interrupt the person. Linked very closely to the point of being a good listener is patience. Overall, if you look, and if this is not something related to only when you're speaking to somebody, but actually when you're in the entire value chain trying to find a solution for the client, trust me, you need a lot of patience. You need patience because as a client servicing person, you are also a partner to multiple functions within the organization. Whether it's, and I'm just going to give you a live example of what we do in PR. I may be a client servicing person. Typically, I will also have a media relations team. That media relations team has the responsibility to kind of take your message out to either the media or influencers. I may have a social media team. I may have a content team, and I may have a planning team. But I'm the person who's talking to the client. So I am, in a way, the carrier of both good as well as bad messages. So, and that would mean that you have to repeat the brief to 20 different people, customizing it for what they want to hear, replicate that to maybe how it works in the advertising world. You have a planner, you have a creative team. Within the creative team, you have a visualization team, and you have an art team. So it gets very, very complicated. It's not something as simple as, hey, I'm going to take the brief, and I've listened to the brief very patiently. I thought I understood everything, and it's fine. I'm going to create a document and send it off. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. It's a little more complicated than that. This is, and I often notice that, especially these days, that, we tend to be very spontaneous in our reaction. I'm not saying that you become Zen and don't react to clients or, react to the situation that you're in. But I think an immediate reaction, which is not thought through, is not something that is going to work for you in the long run. So if you're thinking of doing something in the future around client servicing, have very restrained reactions. It's not to say that you sit with a straight face. I mean, just imagine if I'm talking to you with a straight face, you're not going to relate to me after 5 minutes. So it's about, finding that balance of saying that, sometimes we get clients we get calls from clients of very unfortunate instances. Some of them are extremely funny as well, but you hold on to the reaction. You don't, and I say that in very simple words. Imagine you on a phone call and somebody says, this happened, and what would I do? I would start laughing. I would say, oh my God, what has happened? I may eventually say that in the conversation, but I realize the difference between speaking to a friend to an acquaintance versus a client. So I think, that's very, very important, and a very small aspect, but extremely, extremely important. And I think the last part, which plays a very, very important role in the entire ecosystem of communication, which is EQ. Uh, Somewhere we kind of forget that it's always ego versus self-esteem versus what is right. But I think it needs some bit of maturity of thinking, and of course a lot of hand holding from people within the organization for you to be able to reach to that point where you are also exercising the right amount of EQ when it comes to dealing with people, which in turn affects the way you service your clients, because anything which is emotionally loaded and is not solution driven is not going to work. So I'm not this the conversation starter of soft skills doesn't mean that you are a therapist. You are not a therapist to a client. They have come to ask you for a solution, a business solution. So obviously, you will have to give them a business solution. It's the manner in which you communicate it. Sometimes your voice modulation plays a very, very important role. This may seem like really, does that really make a difference? But yes, trust me, it does. I can't do this right now because I have a lot of work, versus can you give me some time? I'm in the middle of a lot of things. Let me finish this and call you. See the difference it makes? I'm giving some kind of a comfort to my client to say, hey, I'm there for you, but I have an important task that possibly only you've given me. Let me finish that and come back to you. So I think, those are the little elements that you will feel. And I do hope that, whatever I'm discussing with you, you're also able to apply it in different streams as well. It's not that, you have to be in PR or advertising to make use of all this. Coming to some serious stuff, because, ultimately it's a business relationship. Somebody has spent money on a particular product. They are looking at the promotion of certain services or any other specializations that they want to, leverage through your expertise. So I think, the first thing that you have to remember is that you need to have the ability to comprehend a brief. A lot of times the problems happen, and reimagine, just go back to any conversation that you had where, maybe a heated conversation that you had with somebody in the customer service department, because I don't think I'll have any other examples to give you because you're not working with clients at the moment. You find that, oh my God, I've been breaking my head with this person for the last 15 minutes, but she's not understood what my problem is. And I don't think as an effective or a successful client servicing person, you can afford to be in that category. So you have to understand and comprehend what the ask really is. And for that, you need to really, really understand the industry and the sector that the client is in. We've spoken enough about maybe the soft skills that possibly you need to, the softer side of you on how do you deal with people. But what kind of knowledge do you need to make a dent in the business life cycle of the client? So if tomorrow I'm servicing a client which is in the space of content creation, and if I don't understand the content creation ecosystem of India, I don't understand the regulatory policies and whatever else that may be required, I'm not going to be able to service the client, because I will only say, okay, either you decide that it's going to be a career job. Trust me, it's not a career job. Somebody is calling you up because they want a solution. They are seeking advice. They're seeking some kind of an output. So that is one of the most important elements of those. I did touch upon the fact that, we all work in larger organizations. We have larger interests of a lot of us working together. And I think the second most important thing is to be able to put all of this under a process, because what you need to understand is that everybody in the team comes in with a lot of skill sets. And as a client servicing person, the responsibility often rests on your shoulders to understand what the requirement is and what my client would possibly need in this kind of a situation. So it's about, okay, I have this problem in hand, and I know that as a process, this is what I need to put together. Where does it take me? It takes me to the solution. Do not forget that it's all about the solution. It's all about finding the solve. So if you don't find the right solution, I think you'll never be able to sustain any good relationship with the client. Your sweet talking is going to help you maybe tide through day 1, day 2, day 3, but in the long term, it's not going to work. So as a client servicing person, at every point, you need to make sure that you're staying ahead of the curve, keeping yourself updated, abreast with whatever is happening in the industry or the entire, anything that possibly affects your client is something that you should be aware of. I'm a great fan of this last point, because for me, as I'm seeing the first 3 points, it all boils down to real life situations, which will come back in a different shape and form to you, maybe 3 months down the line and 4 months down the line. If you want to really master the art of client servicing, do not forget your experiences, because you need to learn to apply from them. And I say that for any and every field within the purview of communication. If you're not able to apply, of course, in a newer context about what you've learned, I think you're going to go back to the learning cycle and you'll never be able to grow. It will also never give you the freedom to innovate, because you'll always start from point zero. I think as professionals and as some of you may be thinking of wanting to pursue a serious career in client servicing, I think that's one thing that you must remember. Every encounter, every experience, it's what you draw as learnings from them, and never ever forget them, because you will find some way to apply it or use it to your advantage at the right time. At the heart of all this is people, because this is not about robotic conversations. You're actually, there's one human being speaking to the other human being at the other end of the phone call, or sitting in the same room deliberating, brainstorming on a particular brief. And it is really understanding. I mean, you'll find it happens to us many a times. It's in fact a joke in a few cases where we decode a brief that comes from a client from 3 perspectives, because what he or she writes in the mail is very different. What he or she writes and says to you on a phone call is very different. And third thing is not happening on what he or she says to you in a meeting is very, very different. So I think, it's really about different people that you want to cater to and how you want to find a solution around all of it. Now that I've jargonized a lot of things, and I'm sure you have friends or you've been reading a lot of stuff around how interesting or tough client servicing may be, and you would be like, okay, these are concepts good enough for us to know, but how does it actually help us? It just goes out of the window. Trust me, a lot of it will go out of the window, because now if I put you in the real life situation, these are some of the statements that you will hear on a daily basis. This is not good enough. You're possibly responding to a brief and they haven't liked your creative rendition of it. Creative rendition could be anything. It could be a copy of a social media post. It could be a press release. It could be an ad creative. It could be anything. What do you do in those kind of situations? Like I said earlier on, you're often the carrier of good and bad messaging, because the client is calling you. The client is telling you that I don't think this answers the problem that I gave you. What are you going to do in those kind of situations? Then comes the difficult ones, because if you've been in the relationship with the client for a very long time, sometimes you'll miss deadlines as well. As much as it's unacceptable, it happens, because those are market realities. For whatever reasons, you got something late, or you were not able to fulfill, or whatever it was. And you will be told that on your face. to I want to talk to your boss, to I need it now. Those kind of it actually happens. On a Friday at 6 o'clock when you're about to pack up, you will find an email popping up in your inbox saying, I need something by Saturday or I need something by Monday. What do you do in those kind of situations? Now, these are the real life problems of client servicing people. These are real life concerns of client servicing people, that where do we draw the line? How do we find a solution? How do we learn to say a no to clients? I'm not teaching you how to say a no. I'm just empowering you and enabling you on how to actually decode a situation and possibly find a viable solutions. There would be some instances where you will have to burn the midnight oil. If your client is in a crisis, you cannot work by the calendar. You cannot work by the clock, because if there is something grave enough which is going to damage their reputation, it cannot be like, let me come back to you at 9:30 a.m. on a Monday, because the damage would be done. If they're listed on the stock market, their stock price could crash, they could be defamed, there could be litigation, whatever the case may be. But those are real life situations. Being in the business of PR, we often hear from clients that, oh, but my competition got a lot of coverage, but I didn't get coverage. So am I doing something right? Are you doing the right kind of things? Do you even understand what I need? Now, these are real life problems. These are real life feedback points. And, if you had to quiz me, you would be like, but you told me to listen to them patiently. And you told me to read up on the industry, and you told me to find a solution, but I did all of that, but my client is not happy. Yes, finding a happy client is tough. Sometimes we say they don't exist, but they do. I think the mistake that we all make is to assume that if I've done one thing well, they're going to like everything. So in the corporate world, I don't think it works like that. I don't think in the realms of professionalism, it's one project to the next one. If I don't excel in my current project, and if I expect to reap laurels from the previous one that I may have done historically, I'm sorry, it's not happening. And that's the need for you to keep innovating, to keep finding solutions which are relevant for the day. I just, thought that I'll leave you with some tips. And again, this is not a glossary of items. And neither is it be all or end all to what you can do. But if I had to really, just point it down to maybe a few things that are critical to what client servicing does. Because if you imagine the world of PR, we are in a way jack of all, because our industry is not structured that you have purest client servicing people. I need to know a bit about media relations, because that's the media ecosystem that I live and play with. So if I do not know about the trends in the media, I'll not be able to service the account. So that means I need to learn some other skills apart from client servicing skills, because on what base do you service a client? You service a client on the base of knowledge, on the base of technical knowledge. Increasingly, we're seeing data and insights come on to play a very, very important role in everything that we do, because every brand, every company, every corporate now wants to have a scientific approach, and very rightly so. If we do have, the kind of digital proliferation that we've had in the country, and there is, like a great repository of information sitting for you to tap into, if you're not going to make use of data and insights, and to be able to at least understand the basics. What I'm trying to establish by, naming certain parts of the other verticals also that come into an important, or that begin to play a very, very important role in how effectively it molds you as a client servicing person, is the knowledge of other departments. Do not think that, it's only about, I'm going to relay the message, but what are you going to relay the message on? My creative team said that they're not able to deliver the brief, or my creative team thinks that, this is a great messaging for the country and I'm going to do this, I'm sorry, it's not going to work for you beyond a point. So try to learn a few more skills because those bells and whistles are very, very important in defining what other aspects of the business that you can get into. Because, eventually as you go up the ladder, you'll also realize that it's not only about managing the relationship, right? It's also about picking up the right kind of information. It's what I see and read as words to what I read between lines as well. I am foreseeing, just imagine a situation, you're working on maybe a chemical company or some production company, and repeatedly you're hearing from the client that unfortunately there are a lot of mishaps happening on the ground floor. What do you do as a client servicing person? Do you just make a note and say, yeah, one more person got injured, insurance provided, hospitalization provided, or do you actually go back and absorb and try to pick out a trend that, hey, I see that the frequency of such kind of instances have increased. Do I need to speak to the client about some kind of a sensitization that possibly needs to get done, or possibly there's some other trend that I'm picking out, whether it's the basic availability of the facilities which are not available. So I'm not saying you get into their business to try to give them solutions that possibly your fire security is not in place. It's not about that, but it's about effectively being able to pick up a trend to say, this is repeatedly happening in my client, with my client, or this is repeatedly happening in the industry. So possibly, there's something that I can speak to the client about and figure out that, hey, do you foresee this as a problem that the entire industry is facing, or is it unique to yourself? So I think, those are very, very important aspects as well. It's a 24/7 job. From that perspective, don't worry, you do have your work-life balance as well. But it's about keeping your eyes and ears open at every time to know exactly what's happening, because you never know where the question is going to come from. Interestingly, before we move on, to the last section on what possibly, some of the do's and don'ts that you must consider, should you decide to pursue a career, or should you even contemplate on wanting to pursue a career, there is today your customer is beyond what you see. Your customer is also on social media. Your customer is everywhere. So your feedback, the feedback that your client's product or service will get may come from multiple multiple ends. There could be somebody who may be commenting on social media. There could be somebody who may be, making a call to the customer service, or possibly writing into the company, and in the media world, possibly writing to the editor, say, I'm not happy with the service, or things like that. So you have multiple stakeholders. It's not about only one person that you need to deal with, or only a set of people that you need to deal with. And I think it's really, don't kill me for saying it, but it's not for the faint-hearted. It's for some, you just need to be agile, but you need to be very positive about it, because there will be instances where you'll be like, I don't know why this is happening. Like, I'm trying really hard, but why am I not getting a solution for the client? But it's really about understanding, and I can't say that enough, on why are things happening in a particular way. And if I had to actually leave you back with maybe, 3 points, is first of all, and I've said that already, is about understanding what they want. And that's extremely, extremely important at every point in your client servicing journey, because your goalposts will change by the day. You will have newer assignments. You will have newer stakeholders within a client's office as well to deal with. So it's really important to know the audience and what you're catering to. The second most important thing is that you have to find time. You have to find enough mind space to be able to empower yourself. Because if you are not empowered with the right kind of information, background information, with the right kind of support from your team members, you'll never be able to effectively do very well in your role. And more importantly, all of it is linked to the fact that we are all problem solvers, right? I'm attempting to solve a problem for you over these 60 minutes to say that, can I make you understand the potential of client servicing, or maybe bust a few myths for you. So I need to realize the solve that I'm in this conversation for. Do I over expect from this conversation? No, but at least there is clear comprehension about why I'm here, what I'm trying to do, and I think the same holds true for all of you as well who want who see themselves in client servicing. Um, we did speak about listening, and it's about, in this section, I just want to take it beyond just being a good listener to a very sharp listener, because every sound should mean something to you, and I would say that's what client servicing is. Every silence, very metaphorically spoken, but you need to understand, you need to learn to even read the pauses. I'm not saying that this is about getting into somebody's mind and becoming possibly a hypnotist or something. It's not about that. It's really about understanding and asking the right kind of questions, because if you are just not listening, if you're not paying attention to what they're saying, you'll never be able to come back and relay the same problem or the concern to anybody internally, whether good or bad. I think the second most important thing actually, and I think that is true for I till date, I read a lot because I realize that there are no shortcuts, especially in the world of agencies. You're working on multiple sectors at the same time, and of course, nobody's like a born encyclopedia in every industry, and there are no shortcuts there. If I need to deep dive into something and why does it happen, I need to spend that time. And that's why, this entire journey of empowerment becomes a very, very important role. And, that knowledge seeker in a client servicing person has to be alive always, in whatever capacity it can be, because sometimes you'll feel that I don't have the time to do it. But I urge you, I request you to find time to do it, because it's not difficult. Giving 15 minutes of your day away into acquiring some bit of new knowledge, even if it's something new, even if it's, it could be as basic as going and reading something light about the industry. And, you guys are such avid consumers of digital content. In a way, you guys have shaped the way, the digital content industry is moving in India. Today, there's a DIY kind of a video and learning video for everything. So nothing can take away from the power of words. But if you like the spoken word, go for it. But do not ever think that you know it all, and you don't need to go and cross-check with the source. That would be one of the biggest mistakes. And trust me, I say this because I see a lot of it sometimes happen around where I solve intuitively. And I used to make that mistake when I was younger as well, that I would think, but I think it's right. This is how I feel. But I'm sorry, I'm not representing the entire country or the world. What I can solve intuitively is maybe one insight that I can bring to the table. But if I don't use data and insights to marry back what my intuitions may come true, maybe it's backed up by a proof point. That's fine. Maybe that my intuition and my experience is giving me the direction, but that's not the only solution. So if I don't question myself as well on what I'm gathering, and that also means that questioning the different departments that you work with, even internally, that is extremely important as well. And the last part of everything that we do, and I said this, and we at Weber Shandwick are our tagline is we solve, because it is about solving, right? It is about solving a business need. It is about solving something for a client in whichever journey of their product life cycle or the corporate life cycle that they are sitting in. And if I am not here, I don't possess the ability to decode the ask and relay it back to my teams. See, as client servicing people, do not think that you're shouldering all the responsibility, because you have support teams. It's not a one-man show. Because if it is a one-man show, you will only become a consultant, or you will, only give inputs on certain things. But I'm talking about, imagining yourself in a multifunction setup. Possibly you're doing creatives, you're doing everything else. So you do have a backend team to come back and take support from, because that is what the part of the solution is going to be coming in from there. And maybe now the dull and the gloomy part of it, because it does come in with not very pleasant feedback, not very pleasant experiences, and at that point you do feel low, you do feel bogged down. You may also reach a point where you may begin to question certain things, but don't do that. I don't think it's important to over question ourselves. Yes, it's important to be cognizant of the feedback that is coming and possibly the mistakes that you've made. But I think somewhere what we forget is that, again, I'm going back to the point of, because you work with multiple stakeholders, both internally as well as externally, do not ever think that asking for help is a sign of failure. You're not here to solve for everything that you possibly do not know, or you don't have the professional expertise to do it. So reach out to more and more people, talk to a lot more people, because that's what will actually, open out more doors for you, even at the basic level. Because, imagine you speaking to maybe somebody in the finance team trying to find a solution to some of the problems that the client may be facing. And I take you back to the point of application that I said, cut to maybe a different situation that has come up for a totally different client, but at the back of your mind that's playing. So possibly, those kind of things will obviously play a very, very important role. I just want to end the conversation with a quote, a very famous one by Walt Disney, because as client servicing people, we have possibly 3 or 4 key focus areas: client retention, client management, client satisfaction, and the fact that your client is able to take your voice or feedback on your service to other people. I think that this sums it very, very beautifully to, at least for me, may not resonate with you. But if you go deeper into it, it says, do what you do so well that they would want to see it again and again and bring their friends. So it is about playing to your advantage, playing to your skills, playing to your hero skills rather, and make that so significant that it's hard to miss, and it brings in more and more business for you. I mean, ultimately, it's all about that. And I just want to end with just one point, and it's not about what is happening at the moment, because of course the emotions run very high with the manner in which COVID has changed everyone's lives, including yours, because I would imagine second year, third year students to be, sitting around in the college canteen and, having a lot of fun, and maybe going to Kamla Nagar and I don't know if it's still famous or not, but, going for a round to Kamla Nagar, and I don't know how many of those theaters exist. So I know it's tough. It's not happening because you're not able to step out. But it's about finding joy in whatever you have. And I do that as a practice when I service my client, that I've made a resolution for myself that I'm going to enjoy every moment that I spend servicing a client, because maybe those experiences of sitting in a boardroom and doing those discussions are no longer happening, but it's not that bad, and possibly things will improve for the better. So thank you. This brings me to the end. I hope, Manya, I timed myself okay. and I'll open it to you now.
Thank you so much for the enriching session, ma'am. It was really insightful. The chat box is now open to question. You guys can put your queries in the chat box. Yeah, so we have the first question. Could you please walk us through what your typical day at Weber Shandwick looks like?
The typical day looks, actually, I'm just trying to find the right answer with pre-COVID and post-COVID, but I don't think there's anything like pre-COVID that exists anymore. But one thing is common, because we are in the business of PR and communication. Our day typically starts with reading about what's happening in the industry. So for us, consumption of news from different sources, whether it's newspapers, online, and all of that. So a good part of our first half is spent on knowledge gathering. That knowledge is then relayed back to the clients, along with the discussions on what the key activities for the day, which are of course broken down, as per, actually a quarter requirement is then broken down to a month, translates down to a day. And then the day is focused on deliveries. What the play out of those deliveries entails a lot of meetings and discussions with your team members, because like I said, we have domain experts from different parts, whether it's data insights, whether it's media relations, etc., to say that, I have a brief from a client, I need to do a press conference, for example, which is the city I need to do in, what kind of messaging do I need to go with, and all of those discussions. And then, of course, putting all of those recommendations together and putting it back to the client. So this, I guess that would be a typical day. Some of our typical days are also about, because we also pitch for a lot of new business. So when we are in the process of these pitches, again, it's really understanding and decoding what the client needs and then putting it together and getting various voices from different streams of expertise that we have within our company. Actually, it's nice that you asked me about how we spend our day typically, because what I do want to tell you guys about is that we work in a very peculiar startup kind of a way. And each person, we call those value-based communities, and all of our employee base, whether it's in India or across the globe, are split by those value-based communities, and client experience and client servicing is one of them, of which I'm a part of. And then we have data and insights, we have integrated, and we have content. I think what that does is that it helps me channelize my skills. It helps the organization also know how to channelize my skills, and it's a win-win for both of them. So a lot of our days are also spent, and we call that dynamic teaming, to working together with different teams on how collectively we can work together and find a solution. So yeah.
Great. That sounds interesting. We have the next question. Since feedbacks are an essential part of client servicing, and as you mentioned, a lot of time there are negative feedbacks, what is the ideal approach to deal with them?
Samir, unfortunately, there's no single rule book that you can possibly play with on that, because you also need to go deeper into why the negative feedback is coming. And I'm not trying to make this conversation very esoteric, but sometimes the feedback is justified because maybe it's not the solution that the client wants. And sometimes it's okay to take it with a pinch of salt and say that, it's happened and it's fine. Our natural tendency is to react very adversely to negative reaction, negative feedback. My advice to you is have restrained emotions. I said that earlier as well. Sometimes you feel like boxing somebody's face, but Don't let that show. Just take it easy, take a deep breath, and assess. Try to analyze, because don't react on words. And sometimes they do get a little tough. Trust me, they do. Like, it hurts you personally. Uh, but I think, ego, self-esteem, and being able to understand that there is a thin line between all of them. Somebody crossing the line of being civil is unacceptable. The manner in which the feedback is giving. Abusive, not allowed. So if you are in that situation where somebody is being abusive, the best thing to do is to politely tell the person that, I'm sorry, I don't think we should be having this conversation anymore. Maybe when you're calmer, we can talk about it. And go back and escalate it to somebody within the company. So there would be different kind of instances when you say negative feedback. Negative feedback could be the manner in which the feedback is given, or the feedback in itself is not very good for you because you work very hard, but they didn't like your concept. Hard luck. Work on the concept again. But I think, just as one of the learning points, you must have the courage and the clarity to quiz clients. Tell me what you don't like about it. Because don't take things like it's a no, but why is it a no? Don't become argumentative, but be very reasonable in taking that feedback.
Yeah, I think that answers the query very well. We have one more question here regarding the emotional question that was in the presentation. It says that now that during these pandemic times, there's a lot of discussion about mental health. Do you think the importance of EQ has become manifold, and have there been any drastic changes in the functioning of the client servicing industry due to this COVID?
Yes, it has. As we all deal with whatever COVID is throwing at us, both in terms of business as well as emotional challenges, uh, at two levels, or actually at three levels. One is your own organization. I think, a whole lot of organizations are doing a lot more. And ours was anyway a people first organization, even pre-COVID, and we continue to do so. I was telling you guys earlier, about how it's always empathy first and being able to understand what the person is going through, offering a lot of tools and services and solutions, because people need help. People need help in terms of access to, I'm just, maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's through access to maybe certain meditation options and all of it. That's one part of it. But I think, staying overall on EQ, the pandemic has been a tipping point for that, because especially in our universe, the fact that it's such a people-focused thing that you've got to be at all points, stay on your guard, that whatever you're saying is in line with what the emotional sensibilities of the other person may be. I would also say that the industry largely has been doing a lot of things, and I don't know if you saw that campaign that AAA of I did last month on on mental health and going easy, about the fact that they need to give enough room to their employees to possibly grieve if they had to take time out for vaccination. So yes, I'm seeing that as a positive trend, that mental health, if you look at the entire topic, it's not only related to the world of communication alone. I'm glad that it's becoming a mainstream topic. And even at the organizational level, across different industries, people are paying more importance to what, and I think it rightfully deserves that kind of attention. So yes, everybody's become more empathetic. You do see, because what you also need to understand is that work from home as a model has blurred the lines of timings, because we are not spending too much time in travel. We are not having a water cooler conversations. So I think it's somewhere becoming acceptable to call up somebody at a particular hour, but I think increasingly I'm seeing a lot of organizations, etc., exercise a lot of restraint around it.
We have one more question in the chat box. It is about the calling. So it says when what the client says on a phone call is very different what he or she says over a mail, and how should one deal with such communication gap in a corporate environment?
One part is that you should be able to get the brief in any shape and form, and in multiple shapes and form that you should. The other important aspect there is for situations like this, hunt in pairs. Don't try to do that problem solution conversation or a brief taking conversation by yourself. Get somebody else into the conversation as well. It could be another member from your team, it could be another member from your department, but I think having another perspective, because when you both come back and discuss, hey, did you understand what he or she said? I think it'll be better directionally. We often and in every case advise our people to make sure that it's important that a brief is documented, because there's no way to go back to a verbal brief and verify that this came as a part of the brief. So you'll have to find that right balance to be able to navigate through such kind of situations where the mail means totally different versus what the conversation is. In a few cases, what we've also done is we've created a lot of playbooks for situations like those, because not everything can come in the form of an email. So if you're seeing that as a recurring trend, in some of those instances, we've initiated and institutionalized a lot of playbooks that one needs to follow while taking a brief or giving a brief. So I think those are the things that come in handy when it comes to situations like those. Rely back on playbooks, use templatized briefs, get somebody else in the room.
I think there are no more queries in the chat box, and I think that's the end from the audience. We are really thankful that you joined us today and giving us such an insightful session. Client servicing was a very new topic for almost all of us. And I think after this session, we have a lot to carry back on and reflect upon what client servicing actually is, and not just what we thought about it earlier. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure interacting with all of you. Stay safe and good luck for your exams and your future.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Wishing you
Bye-bye.
a good night.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.